Okay, welcome back to the Panther Creek Programming Club's problem of the week. This is the first problem of the week, PET. I'll just read through this briefly. In the popular show Dinner for five contestants compete in preparing culinary delights. Every evening, one of them makes dinner and the other four then grades it on a scale of 1 to 5. The number of points a contestant gets is equal to the sum of the grades they got. The winner of the show is, of course, the contestant that gets the most points. Write a program that determines the winner and how many points they got. So that just gives you some background on the problem. I didn't pay a huge amount of attention here. I think the place where you want to pay the most attention is in your input-output specifications. So let's read. Input 5 lines with 4 integers. The grades. Contestants are 1 to 5 in the order in which their grades were given. And you want to output the number of the winner and then the score that they got. So basically what I'm thinking right now is I want to have a for loop which will iterate through and grab these. And then I want to have a dynamic sum counter which will get the sums of these. And then if it's greater than an existing sum, then it'll replace it. So I'll explain a little more in my code, which we can come over here and look at. I have a max score here, which just holds the highest sum value. And then I have a num here, which I use to hold the contestant number. So for j in range 5, j is just a counter variable. I'm telling this to iterate 5 times. I take in x, and then I split it by space. So this will take in one row at a time, and then it'll split it into a list by space. And then I have to go convert it into an integer. So then I run another for loop here with a different counter variable that just goes and converts it to an integer. Here I had a spot of debugging, which I turned off when I was submitting it, but I'll go ahead and turn it back on just for the problem. And then that'll debug out and just show me what the sum is. And then if the sum is greater than the max score, so if what got inputted is greater than what's stored right now, we reset the max score to what the existing sum is. And then we want to increment we want to add 1 to the original counter variable here. I know this part might be a little hard to understand, but basically j is also serving as a counter for the contestant number, because here it says the contestants are numbered 1 to 5 in the order in which their grades were given. So like the first row is contestant 1, the second one's contestant 2, and so on. So I can just use j here and then add 1 to the contestant number, and that'll give me the accurate contestant number. And then here I had a debug point where I print j. And then at the end of it, I just print the number followed by the max score, and that follows the output format. So I'll go ahead and grab some of this practice case and then paste it into here. So as you can see, here's my first debug point. This is printing out x, which is a list, as you can see, and then it prints out the sum of x. And then it'll run through this if, and then here it'll print out j, comma j plus 1. And that's the contestant number. So here you can see it's been updated to 1, and then because you don't see another j until 4, you know that the j is 4, and you also know that none of these have exceeded the sum until 4. Honestly, the debugging is not super important unless you're trying to address an error in your code. That's where it's particularly helpful. But this problem is relatively simple, so it wasn't super necessary. I just made the debug points as kind of an example. And then here it just outputs 419, so you want to check that this matches. Yep. And then we can test our second case. 217, so yep, that matches. I'll go ahead and throw it into the submission. Make sure your language is selected. I have it set to Python 3 in default, but that's something you have to do in your own settings. So I'll go ahead and submit it. And then going back to the code, there's a better way to write this. Like for example, here you could have used a a strategy called a list comprehension, but I didn't want to confuse anyone with it. So, yep, there you go. There's pet accepted. Pretty easy starter problem. So, I guess feel free to email me if you had difficulty with it. My email is aywang2, and then all that standard student email stuff. All right, that's it.